When I first started paddling, I basically just spent my time researching into the effectiveness of a strength training program on your paddling performance. At the time, the principal measure that I used was, well, I didn't have an erg, and I didn't have a single craft. So the way I used to measure the effectiveness of a training program was we used to do what's called a water trial, which is, well, basically early morning, get up early morning, one paddler pulls the whole dragon boat, which is a pretty brutal test. The benchmark, so at the time we used to test over 120 meters, and the benchmark was about 60 seconds. To try and get under 60 seconds would have been really good. So that was the principal measure. But the last time that I did the water trial, I spent 6 months training to test a specific thing. When I got in the water trial in the boat, it's one paddler whole boat, so you got to tilt the boat so you can reach in the water. But what it did was it jammed my hip into the gunnel, so I was unable to test the effectiveness of the leg drive. So in fact, I'd wasted 6 months of training. So it was that at that point I thought, I started to dream of the ultimate way to measure the effectiveness of your strength training program or your technique on your paddling performance. So I'm going to show you in a while the dream test, what I've built, which I consider to be the ultimate test. I'll show you in a while, but before that, let's do some background.
Dragon boaters are really passionate about their sport. They train very hard and very often, but I notice that they never really improve over the years. Paddlers should focus more on the power over time relationship to understand what power rating they need to get the times that they want. Furthermore, you need to develop a strength training program that benefits the technique you need to produce the performance that you want. If your boat does 200 meters in around 50 seconds, you're probably producing around 225 to 240 watts of power. Imagine if you could produce 275 to 300 watts of power. What sort of time would your boat do then? What sort of training tool do you need to help you develop the technique to produce the power that you need to improve your paddling performance and be confident that you can transfer this into paddling on a dragon boat? I decided to modify my erg so that it was a better representation of an actual dragon boat. I built the seat to the exact dimensions that you'd find in a dragon boat. I added a gunnel, and I built a footrest of the exact height and distance for foot placement that you'd find in a dragon boat. And I also use an actual dragon boat paddle and attach it to the erg at the point where you would feel the resistance of the water against the paddle. So it was an accurate representation of what it was like to pull the paddle through the water.
Are you ready? Yep. Attention.
It was a great experience paddling with the Bluefins Dragon Boat and Outrigger Canoeing Club. What I find particularly interesting about this club is that you can paddle in Dragon Boat over short distances, in which case you need to produce high power for short periods of time, and you can also do Outrigger Canoeing, in which case you are paddling over longer distances and longer times, and really working your aerobic capacity. But instead of paddling at low intensity over long periods of time, in an outrigger canoe you switch the paddle from one side to the other, which means you're working those muscles, or you can work those muscles at a higher intensity in an interval type training, whilst at the same time maintaining complete and total aerobic conditioning for your heart and lung package. Now, how good would that be for your training program? But wait, there's more. In an outrigger canoe, you'll occasionally have to paddle through big waves. You have to produce higher force to get through those waves, paddle with higher intensity. Imagine what that'll do to your force curve. In summary, outrigger canoe paddling is good for your power over time relationship. Think about your high intensity interval training and aerobic conditioning combined, and also enjoy the scenery. How good would that be? With the modifications to my erg, it is such an accurate representation of what it's like to paddle in a dragon boat that I feel like I'm actually on the water. Now it's time to celebrate.